So this evening's class, just the one block, as I said. We're going to start at the far end of the mat, come into a seated posture. Allow yourself to take a moment to breathe and just kind of settle in a little bit. So I find it easy to bring my heels in towards the groin, but it's whatever allows you to kind of stretch up through your spine and get your shoulders to relax a little bit. We're going to flip it a little bit this evening in this core class. Still going to be strong, but we're going to sort of maybe focus a little bit more on mobility rather than strength. So some big, deep stretches, not so much flow. But hopefully that'll be a challenge that feels good in your body. And you'll feel at the end of it that you have actually done something. So having got myself sorted out with that, I'm going to untangle the legs, give them a little shake out, and I'm going to come into a seated twist. I'm going to take my left foot out towards the right hip, bring the right leg across. I want the foot flat to the floor, knee high, and I'm going to lift the left hand up and over and just come into the twist. So whilst you're staying there, I'm going to check if I've seen something else. Yep. Now, as you want to tilt the pelvis forwards a little bit, so that allows you to lengthen the spine up. We're just using the arm and the leg to counterlever against each other. Looking over the rear shoulder is more of an option than a necessity. It feels good in your neck and your shoulders, you can. And then we'll untangle the legs and cross ourselves over to the opposite side. This time that right arm comes up, we get a little bit of space in the body, crossing over. Try to have both shoulders about the same height from the floor, so you don't want to be leaning back or forwards or sideways. And we'll release from there. I'm going to leave the block at the back, allow myself to come towards the front of the mat. Fingertips on that front edge, knees underneath the hips, and we're going to take cat-cow. I'm just going to allow myself to draw the chest forwards, roll the shoulders back, tailbone to the sky. The belly's drawn in a little bit. I'm going to use the exhale, tilting the pelvis the opposite way, spreading the shoulders and the spine up towards the sky. The first couple, I tend to just work into the spine and look for that little bit of freedom and open out and stretching out some of the muscles. And then I take myself towards a little stronger version where I'm pressing down through the shin, tucking the head in a little more, pressing the hands into the floor a little stronger. I'm going to allow myself to lift up for the last one. And we'll start to take that into a rounded version, sort of a barrel roll out to the side and up and across. And you can either keep the arms straight and work into the shoulders and neck from that position. Some people like to bend their elbows. It feels more natural to kind of get a little deeper and start to bend into the elbows and work into the spine in a different way. It just feels a little bit different. Some people find that very natural, some people don't. And we'll allow ourselves to move in both directions. And slowly coming back to the center. Going to bring the elbows to the floor. I'll take the feet either side of the block. The knees and the hips come down to the ground in Sphinx pose. I draw the chest forwards up a little bit. Want to be putting a little bit of pressure into the hands, the belly's drawn in. Roll the heels out, press the thighs down and away. Spread the shoulders wide. Pressing the shoulder blades out to the side can be a little bit of a challenge in terms of coordination, getting the muscles to understand what you want them to do. So bear with. And it may feel like you're sort of sliding your elbows out to the sides if your mat isn't particularly sticky. I'm fairly lucky, mine feel fairly glued down. And then I'm going to let myself come down to the floor. Bring the hands down to the bottom of the ribs, tuck the toes underneath. Shoulder blades draw back and lift away. I'm going to take a knee to each edge of the mat, bring the toes together. Allow myself to sit down onto the heels. I'm going to take that block forwards now and just ahead enough that as I come down, I'm going to be able to get my elbows onto the block. Now I need to have the palms together, so the arms are getting closer together, stretching them as far forward as I can with my heels and buttocks still connected. I'll drop the head in and then allow myself to bend the arms at the elbows and bring the hands into the nape of the neck. You can start to nudge the elbows further forward. You kind of walk your arms out. That feels good in the shoulders to do so. Hopefully you can feel that in the tricep area. On the exhale, I'm going to let the hands come down, lift the head, walk the fingers gently back. I'm going to take the block again towards the back behind the toes. Allow myself to come up onto all fours. Bring the knees back underneath your hips. So we're going to take that right arm out up towards the sky. We're going to thread the needle through. So just dropping that underneath, shoulder in here to the floor. Now, assuming that you can press into the shoulder and you're not taking too much weight into the neck, you can take the left hand to the sky and then wrap it around your body and see if you can bring the fingers into the thigh on the right side, inner thigh you're looking for. With fingertips, just rolling that top shoulder behind you as if you're trying to squeeze the shoulder blades together. You can press into the shins a little bit, press into the bottom arm, and try to breathe. I'm going to untangle that arm, bring it down to the floor, exhale again onto all fours. So take a moment just to kind of let the spine decompress itself. And then I'll take the opposite arm out and up towards the sky. I'm going to fold that underneath. Spread that out to the side. Lift the hand. So wrapping that around, drawing the shoulder back. So I mentioned about being able to press the shoulder down into the floor, the back of the arm. You're taking some of the weight and the strain out of your neck. If you're not able to get your shoulder to the floor, keep your hands on the ground in front of your eyes, so you're not taking so much load into the nervous system. We're still trying to press the shins into the floor a little bit, keeping the belly drawn in. There's lots to do in this pose. And we'll take the hand back up, bring it down to the floor and press away in the ground again. Getting just a moment to untangle ourselves. I'll take the fingers into the very front of the mat. I'm going to tuck the toes underneath, lift into down dog. Now I'm going to move the block with my toes far enough back so that I can have the heels actually resting on the block in down dog. And press the heels into the floor slightly via the block. And mostly when I'm offering a prompt or a cue in down dog, I'll be asking you to try to press the heels towards the back of the mat. And it gives you a different stretch through the calf and the shins and the ankles. But the reason that I'm not saying that this evening is because I'd like you to then turn your toes a little bit out to the side of 45 degrees, just with the heels on the block. Then walk your hands back, squatting down. Now we want to allow the spine to roll down, the head is hanging. I'm going to take the hands around the outside of the legs, so the palms are facing up towards the sky. The back of the hand is now on the floor, sort of alongside the feet. The shoulders are in front of the knees, and if we're lucky, a little bit lower as well. Now it's tricky to breathe here, so you can do your best to breathe long, slow breaths. Looking specifically to get into a very round spine. We'll take the last breath in. Use the exhale to lift the head very gently. Allow ourselves to sit up. We'll move the fingers towards the front of the mat and open ourselves into down dog. Now I'm just going to move the block out to the side using my toes. And bring myself back into my regular shape of down dog. I can hip up and fire and back as I can. This time I'm going to press the heels towards the back of the mat, so starting to experience differences between the two, refreshing my memory. Hands are flat to the floor, using the tummy muscles to lift up and back. I'll come forwards into a plank. So now the shoulders are over the wrist. I'm going to drop the left knee down to the floor, bring the left hand a little more in line with that knee, and then split the left foot out to the side as the right heel drops down to the ground, and allow myself to open up into a side plank. Now, if you wish to, you can take the bottom knee away from the floor and stack it behind the opposite foot. So one foot was already flat to the floor, the other one is now side edge on. I'm going to lift the hips as high as you can. And I'm going to bring the hands down to the ground, adjust my hands back into my plank so the hips are nice and high. I'm still pushing away from the ground. And I can bring the right knee down, just draw the right hand in a little bit, pivot the right foot out to the side, dropping the left heel in, allow myself to lift up, find the balance point. So ideally, there is a line that you could draw that would be straight between your hand, your knee, and your heel. Again, if you wish to, if you have the urge, you can stack one foot behind the other, lift the hips as high as you can. So every sort of half an inch high you can get the hips, you'll feel your abdominal muscles and the side muscles of your transverse abdominal working nicely into those oblique muscles. They will fire up nice and strong, which is why we want to hold the pose a little bit. It does work on building some strength into the shoulders, obviously, and balance, but it's about firing up those side muscles. Whew. And then we'll bring everything back down to the floor. We'll just adjust the hands again. We're staying in our plank pose. We'll bring the knees down to the floor, this time as a pair directly underneath. Now you're going to take the toes of the right foot underneath and slide that back and take it all the way out to the side. So one foot flat to the floor. Going to keep this left thigh vertical. So just have a look. If you took your foot a long way out, you'll have started to create an angle here, but you want that to be vertical. Then you're going to try and keep the hip height on each side of your body the same from the floor, and then walk the fingers back. So we're coming into gate pose. We're just going to rest the hand gently on this right top lid of the pelvis. We'll take the left arm out, up against the ear with the arm, and then stretch the fingers up and over, now to the side. And we want to constantly lift and stretch. So we're pressing down into the foot that's stretched out to the side. We're pressing into the shin a little bit as well. We're keeping the belly drawn in and chest square to the front of the mat. We'll bring that back down to the floor. Come on to all fours. We'll slide the foot back, knee to the ground. Set the toes on the opposite leg and take that out. And then square the hips again to the ground. So consider where your chest is pointing. Try to get the hips to be the same position. So you're working into that inner groin, pressing the outside foot down to the floor. And then walk the hands in, lift. Hand on the top of the pelvis, left side. Right arm comes up, arm to ear, fingers pointing to the sky, and then taking the stretch. So we're lifting up and over. The body will open out a little bit as we spend time here. And then we will let ourselves come back down to the floor. We'll slide the foot back again, so both knees are on the ground. Make sure we're in a nice neutral position. And tuck the toes of the right foot underneath. Take a little breath. And start to lift the right knee out to the side. Again, we're trying to keep the hips square to the ground, so you really want to press down through the arms and that shin. Foot is flexed, so toes towards the knee. Now we're trying to get to the position where the knee is 90 degrees out to the side. And the hips are square to the floor, so you're trying to twist the body one way and then not twist the body the opposite way. And then gets deep into the outside hip. Ooh, and we can bring that leg down. Called a fire hydrant. And then we'll tuck the toes on the opposite leg. Start to press down strong through the Remaining 3 points of contact with the floor as we take the leg out to the side. Keeping the body square over the center line of the mat. Arms and legs are starting to shake. And then we'll bring that leg back down. We'll take a little breath from there. Allow us to come down onto the elbows. We'll interlace the fingers very lightly. Elbows are shoulder distance apart and underneath the shoulders. We'll send the feet to the back of the mat, about as wide as the hips. And allow the hips to come down to where we think is the same height as the shoulders are from the floor. Now you don't want to sink into the ground, you want to press away from the floor, so rounding across the back of the shoulders. We'll flip the feet into a side position over to the left and allow ourselves to take the right hand high. And again, we're going to try and lift the hips as high as we can. Shoulder is stacked over the elbow. Now I've made a fist with the bottom hand and I'm pressing the forearm and the wrist side edge on down to the floor. Feet are strong, lifting up. Keeping the head more or less in line with the body. Bring the hands down into that same position. Take the feet to the opposite side. Remember to breathe. I'll bring the hands back down. The elbow plank. Now we're going to bring the hands underneath. Bring ourselves back into a regular size plank. And then lift into our down dog. Adjusting the feet to hip distance apart if they were anything else. And I'm going to draw the left foot through the center between the hands and to a lunge. And then step back into down dog. I'll bring the right foot through between the hands into the lunge. So pressing out strong through the back leg. I'll step back to down dog. Let's scissor the left leg high, pointy toes, square hip, straight legs. Then draw the knee in towards the chest, holding down dog. And I'll lift up onto the tip toes. Make as much height as I can. Still squeezing the heel into the butt, pressing back into that down dog shape. One more breath. I'm going to bring the foot through between the hands. I'm going to drop the back heel down onto the floor and bring both hands onto the inside of the front leg. I'm trying to have the hands flat to the floor. And squeeze the hips over towards the right side, so bringing the groin more to the center line. Slide your right hand along the ground towards the hips. As your fingers come off of the ground, passing your hips, turn your chest out to that long side of the mat. We come into the deep version of extended side angle, and we're trying to roll the chest up and open towards the sky. So you're rotating your ribs towards the ceiling. You feel the intensity change as you start to roll your chest skywards. We'll bring the hands down, take them outside the front foot, and step back into our down dog. We'll scissor the right leg high, come onto the tippy toes, roll the knee in towards the chest, just squeeze it in as tight as you can, heel into the butt. Still pressing back. So we're very much looking for the down dog shape. Avoid rounding the spine. And we're going to bring the foot through and bring both hands on the inside. Dropping the back heel down, moving the groin over to the center line. The left hand slides back as we take it up towards the sky. Open the chest. Once we're got the arms 180 degrees apart, the fingers pointing to 12 o'clock on the top hand, we're going to start to rotate the ribs up towards the sky. So the eyes naturally start to look towards the ceiling a little bit. It does challenge the balance a little more when you're looking towards the ceiling, because all of a sudden you can't see where the floor is. And try and keep the top shoulder relaxed a little bit. Allow the rotation to come more from the spine. Pressing some weight into the back foot. Remember, the hips stay over the center line, so you might need to think about pressing them forwards a little bit from you. And then we'll finally take the hands down to the floor, bring them either side, step back to down dog. And we'll scissor the left leg to the sky again. Come up on the tippy toes, we'll hold the scissor. And then draw the knee in and through the front of the mat. I'll drop the heel down on the back again, spin the hips over to the side, bring the hands on the inside. Take a breath and slide the right hand back and up towards the sky. On this time, we're going to take the reverse bind. We're going to draw the bottom hand underneath towards the mid section of the thigh. Drop the opposite hand around. Open the chest up to the long side. And try and draw the shoulders back, making the chest as open as you can. And then we'll release. Bring the hands back down to the floor. Set them either side of the front foot. Step them back into our down dog. We'll scissor the right leg high. Hold. Up on the tippy toes. Nice and strong. Pressing back. Keeping the belly drawn in. Long breath. Now bring the knee through. Foot to the front of the mat. Hands on the inside. Drop the heel in. Hips over to the side. Left arm comes back. Up. Turn the chest to the open side. The bottom hand floats under. About midway down the hip. Thigh. We drop the top arm over. Try and squeeze the shoulder blades together a little bit. Release. Take the top arm up and over. Hands over side, step back into that down dog. We'll walk the hands this time towards the toes into a forward bend. Now with the fingers slightly forwards, we'll lift the heels off the ground and bend the knees. So we're squatting down. I'm just going to let the knees come down to the floor and untuck the toes momentarily. Sitting up tall, so I can pick my trusty block and take that into the very front end of the mat. Let's lift up enough so I can tuck the toes underneath, get a bit more stretch into the feet. The arms out wide, surface stretch. I'm going to bring the right arm across, first of all, and lock that with the left. And then release that out. Cross over to the opposite side. And then release from here. Hands come into the front of the very end of the mat again. Allow ourselves to lift the hips up. Move gently into our down dog. And to scissor the left leg to the sky. Draw the knee in and through. Take a little breath here. Now I'm going to take the twist. Allow myself to take the left hand to the sky. Open the chest. Squeeze the front thigh towards the center line. Bring the hand back down. Stepping back into down dog. Go forwards into the scissor on the opposite leg. And knee through. And allow ourselves to take the right hand up into the big twist. Strong back leg pressing out through the heel, knee through the center line of the mat. And hands to the floor. And stepping back into that down dog. And we'll scissor the left leg again. Draw the knee in and through. This time I'm going to drop the back knee. Take a little breath. Allow myself to take the left hand forward. I'm going to come into the twist again. As my hand moves towards the back of the mat, hopefully I can see the rear foot. Find the toes. Draw the heel in towards the butt. Squeeze the front knee in. Let the chest lift towards the sky. So there's a little bit of repositioning. Kind of hips sink down towards the floor. And then release. Bring the hands back either side. Sorry, on the inside of the front foot to step into down dog and then rearrange. I'll get that right one day. We'll take the right leg into the scissor. Draw the knee in towards the chest and bring the foot through. Drop the back knee down to the floor. Untuck the toes. Right hand comes forwards into the twist. Again, as a look towards the back of the foot. Hopefully I can see it coming in. The chest will open again. So there's quite a big angle between the two legs. I want the rear knee as far back as I can, dropping the hips in towards the floor a little bit. Last breath here. And then take the hands on the inside. Let ourselves step back into down dog. Rearrange the hands. And take a breath here and scissor. Left leg to the sky. And this time the foot's going to come to the outside of the hand. I'm going to drop the back knee down to the floor. Take the right hand a forearms distance forward and drop the elbow to the ground. Allow myself to take the twist. Once I've done that, I'm going to try and keep the front foot parallel. Squeeze the knee towards the center line on that front leg. Tuck the toes on the back foot. Press out through the heel. I'm trying to keep the pelvis square to the ground whilst the chest rotates up towards the sky. Now bring the hands down on the inside of the front leg. Bring the hands back in line with those toes. Step it back into our down dog. I will still hold the right leg. Take the hand, foot to the outside of the hand. Drop the back knee temporarily. The left hand comes forwards, forearm distance-ish. If you want the elbow underneath the shoulder, allow ourselves to take ourselves into the twist and lift the back knee. So pressing out, squeezing the front foot to parallel the sides of the mat, the knee drawn towards the body and pressing out through the back heel. So at this point, I've actually got two shaking legs. One, because the pressing out through the heel is quite tough, and keeping the foot parallel and the knee drawn in is also a bit of a challenge. Now bring the hands down to the floor, back into the lunge, and then gently to that down dog. I allow myself to walk the feet in about halfway along the mat. And have the feet about hip distance apart. Allow the heels to come to the ground. I'm going to pick the block up, place that underneath my chest. So as I lift up on the sort of landscape edge side, the block is more or less underneath the shoulders and the chest. I'm actually going to try and flatten the spine out. So for me, it feels like I need to draw the belly in, tilt the pelvis up and back, roll the shoulders back and draw the chest forward. It's quite a lot of work. I'm going to soften the knees a fraction whilst I try and keep from the hips through to the crown of the head in the same position. Lean a little into the right leg. Slide the left foot back until the big toes almost lifting away from the ground. And then press the hips towards the back of the mat. So I come into two straight legs. Draw the block back towards you again. So you got two straight legs, 2 feet parallel, hip distance apart, and the groin on the center line of the mat. Remember, we're still trying to draw the chest forwards and the shoulders back and tilt the pelvis up towards the sky. We do all of those things, we get some very big stretches into the hamstring. Opens up the body a little bit more. Great for anyone that needs to be doing a lot of walking in the near future. Now we'll soften the front knee. Allow yourself to take the block forwards again. So as you slide the rear foot back into that starting position, you can reassess how your spine feels and adjust if you need to. You put a tiny micro bend in both knees. You lean onto the left, slide the right foot back, allow the heel to do its reach to the floor, slide the block back in. Nice strong upper body. Become very aware where the center line of your mat is, pressing the feet into the floor, tilting the pelvis up a little bit, chest drawn forward. So you're taking quite a lot of weight out of the hands, really. It's more for a little bit of balance and security, perhaps a little bit more of a familiar feeling of sport. And you've got 4 points of contact. Okay, now we'll soften the front knee. Allow ourselves to move the block forwards again. We'll bring both feet into the middle. Take the block out towards the very front end of the mat. We'll walk the fingers into the front end. I will move the feet back into down dog. Take a breath and fill the right leg to the sky. Pull the knee in towards the chest. Bring the foot through to line toes and fingers. Back knee down on the floor, but I'm going to keep the toes tucked under. I'm going to start to press the hips back, pivot on the front heel, slide the fingers along the mat. Now the heel might draw in towards you along the floor as well. We're going to bring the buttock onto the heel on the back foot. toes towards the sky. This leg is as straight as we can. We're actually pressing out through the heel. You want to lift the body up a little bit on those fingertips. Relax the shoulders away from the ears. Keep the belly drawn in. We'll come forwards again. Take the fingers into the front of the mat. Lean the front knee over the toes and then back to down dog. We'll scissor the left leg to the sky. Pull the knee in towards the chest and bring the foot through to line up with the fingertips at the front of the mat. Back knee down into the floor. Remember the back toes stay tucked under. We draw the hands back. Allow ourselves to sink into that real heel. So avoid the toes pointing out towards the side. They really want to be out towards the sky. Pressing out through the heel a little bit. You're on the fingertips. Big stretch into the feet. Little back foot. Some muscles drawn in a little bit. And we can lift up and come from there. So we'll move back, down dog, for last time. We'll come down onto the knees. Pivot the feet out to the side as we start to sit back. You're going to take a little breath. Hands come behind, and we're going to move into happy baby. So we're going to roll the spine down gently. Get a nice long spine, a little wriggle out. It might help. Then I bring the knees in, take them wide, toes together. I let the hands come onto the shins. Arms are on the inside of the thighs. Chin to the chest, let the fingers down, and I am take hold of little toe side of the foot. Extend the soles of the feet to the sky, directly above your knees. Roll your spine down to the floor, head down to the ground, and try to press your tailbone towards the front end of the mat. So you can use your abdominal muscles and your hips and your back and even your legs to press everything towards the front of the mat. And you'll notice that you do come down a little lower. I just want to check that you've got a neutral position for your neck. So the distance between your chin and your chest would be the same as if you were standing. Now, if it feels like your chin is pulled towards the back of the mat and you're kind of creaking the back of your neck, you need to lift the shoulders and untangle your head a little bit and move it down. Now, whilst we're here, we're going to move the fingers very gently around the foot. Take hold of the big toe with the index finger and middle finger. We'll do that slowly with each hand, one leg at a time, so they don't sort of run away from us. Get a nice, good, strong grip. And then we're going to start to press the heels out to the side and let the happy baby kind of work its way into a wide-legged version. Still trying to draw the tailbone to the floor, so still pressing that away. Don't worry if your legs are shaking a little bit, they're probably a bit confused. Actually pressing out through the heels rather than thinking about direction out through the knees. It's a different sensation. Same result. Last breath. Bring the feet back in towards your body. Allow ourselves to roll onto the right side. Use your hands to press into the floor and lift up. We'll take the feet out in front again. Allow ourselves to have the feet about hip distance apart. Going to draw the flesh out a little bit, sitting up nice and tall. Now we're going to bring the heels in towards the ground and work in towards boat pose. So initially the knees are out wide, and we're just going to take the finger, index finger, middle finger around the big toe again. Going to lean back a little bit and walk the heels further in towards you, so you're more onto the back edge of the sitting bones. We'll take a breath, extend whichever foot you feel you wish to out to the side, and then the same with the other. You're going to lift the chest up, roll the shoulders back, and press out through the heels. It's a wide leg variation. You've got a nice open rotation through the hips. And you're trying to press your lumbar spine forwards a little bit. So you're trying to press the groin towards the floor at the same time as balancing into the lean towards the back of the mat. It's an interesting conversation to have with your body. Almost there. Before we think about slowly exhaling the legs back together. We'll take a few breaths to bring the thighs in. Obviously, we're trying to keep the balance, rotating the legs in. And keep drawing the chest forwards and up. Almost there. If you do happen to roll out, hopefully there's enough room behind for you to roll onto the mat without having a calamity with your head. We'll ease the feet back down to the floor gently. We'll take that block and place that behind the butt. Use the fingers to just lift yourself up, entangle the legs out. Give them a little shake. I'm going to bring the right heel into a groin, knee out to the side, square the hips, coming into Janu Shirshasana. I'm going to take a bend in the knee. Lift up a little bit. We're going to press the shin down into the floor. I'm going to fold over and extend the hands out, either around the ball of the foot or holding onto the shin, whatever's accessible. I do want to try and keep the head more in line with the spine rather than dropping it down. So eyeballs more towards the front of the mat. And starting to press the left hip towards the back of the mat a little bit and drawing the belly in. And then I'll release from there. I'll cross over to the other side. Again, take a little time to square up. We'll bend in the knee, rotate that thigh in. Bottom foot is slightly flexed, the toes are always pointing to the front end of the mat. Get space, move slowly forwards and over. Hands again into position. Begin to draw the right hip slowly back. And release. We'll let ourselves come back up. We'll take the legs out again and just taking the right foot under and out towards the hip. So very much how we started this evening, rotating the left leg over. Only this time I'm going to take it to the open side and allow myself to still use the arm and the leg counter levering against each other, but a little easier perhaps for breathing. I'm going to relax from there and cross that over to the other side. then we can release. And take the legs out in front. And I'm going to have the feet wider than the mat and feet flat to the floor. So it kind of controls the angles for me. Going to be on the front edge of the sitting bones. So you might need to lift up a little bit to rock over if you've got particularly square sitting bones. And I'm going to take the hands, arms are on the inside, taking the hands just on top of the feet to start with. I'm going to allow myself to fold over, again, trying to fold from the hips, and then allow my fingers to just walk forward, so off of the feet, and I'm going to stretch out as far as I can. So that very rounded spine that we had at the beginning of class when we were in a squat comes back into play. So slowly walk the hands back in. So to bring the soles of the feet together, I'm going to sit up nice and tall, just taking the hands around the ankle shin. You could connect to the big toes if you wish. I'm actually pressing the little toe side down into the floor, rolling the shoulders back and trying to sit tall. And as well as pressing the little toe side of the foot into the floor and pressing the knees groundwards as well. And then I'm going to release. I'm going to take the feet forwards just enough so that I can lift up and push the block out behind me. I'll take that out to the side. You want to take the feet as wide apart as you comfortably can. Again, we're going to lift onto the front edge of the sitting bone. So I'm already starting to introduce a bit of a forward bend. This time, I want the legs flat to the ground, bum flat to the floor. Pressing out through the heels, the toes are towards the sky. We'll lift up and make some space in the spine, and then I'm going to think about focusing on rotating over the hips, so keeping the spine long. I'm going to take the hands, in my case, I take them on the inside of the sole of the foot around the arch of the foot, but really it's whatever you can get hold of. I let the elbows move out to the side to draw myself even further to the floor whilst pressing out through the heels. Try not to lead with the head. I think about keeping the belly drawn in and folding over deep. Now, if your chest gets to the floor, you have gone far enough. You can take the hands around the outside, little toe side if you wish. You could hold on to the big toes, whatever feels good. I am pressing out through the heels, and I'm also trying to send the tailbone away from me as well, so it helps keep the belly drawn in and look after the lower spine. And then we can begin to allow myself to lift up. And from there, a nice healthy Shavasana. So, I'm going to take the feet out to the corner edges of the mat. I'm using the block under the back of the head so I can see the clock. You want your bed flat to the ground, that is perfectly okay. If you'd like to use a cushion under the back of the head or a pillow or a blanket, that's not a problem. Let the legs roll out. Those hips have done a lot of work lower back and the core groin area. We're going to try and let the legs roll out to the side, let the hands come out to the side as well. Going to wriggle through the spine, down into the hips, along the legs, through the fingers and toes, and then kind of let that wiggle dissipate a little bit, become softer until it's not really visible. Eyes are closed, jaw is soft. And let myself breathe and scan around the body and see if I can let go of anything that particularly I didn't even realize I was holding on to. We'll slowly start to stretch those fingers and toes. Breathe a little deeper. Wriggle through the wrists, ankles. Start to stretch out in any way that feels good. We'll slide the heels along the floor towards ourselves. Well, let the knees travel towards us, taking the hands around the shin very loosely. The gentlest of hugs. Rock a little bit from side to side, build some momentum. Take a breath in and then use an exhale to roll onto my right side. So take a breath down there. And then use the hands to press into the side on the exhale to come back up. Into seated posture of choice. And tall. Bring the hands to the heart. You take the breath in. Eyes are closed. Begin to exhale slowly and let the chin drop. Finding the belly drawn to the spine. Or simply bow to the floor, seeing our practice finishes. As the breath comes back in, allow the spine to lift, head can follow, eyes open. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed a slightly slower, longer stretch this evening, and see you again on the next thing.